let's start with a poll. By raising your hands, how many of you can tell me the rough percentage of Native Americans that were killed as a direct result of American settlement? None. This response is not uncommon, because according to a Huffington Post article published in 2004, less than 4% of Americans know the answer to this question, which is alarming, considering that it is the largest genocide in our history, at a fatality rate of 90%. The point of this question was not to ask about Native Americans at all, but rather to call into question why we don't know the answer to such a significant event in our history. As students and as educators, we should be personally offended by the recent movement towards censoring our education. In particular, AP US History has come under attack for failing to promote American exceptionalism. Even though we are past the age of APs, they still affect us by influencing our academic system and therefore the future. We should repeal the ban against AP US History because it diminishes the value of our education. Today, we will discuss why the ban impedes our education by first looking at the resistance behind it, and next, looking at some harms that result. Then, we will see what can be done about it by looking at some solutions, before finally looking at clearing up some common misconceptions. But first, let's take a look at the resistance behind it. State governments are actively rebuking the course because it fails to promote American exceptionalism. Because this is a new issue, it has yet to completely permeate the public sphere. However, in the political world, state governments are actively challenging this course. There are 3 key areas where this is becoming a problem. The first area is in Oklahoma, where they have already banned the course by a majority of 11-4, according to a CNN News Report article published in February of 2015. The reason they cited was that it painted the founding fathers of America as bigoted. The second key area that we need to look at is in Georgia, which has just newly banned the course. When I wrote this speech, Georgia was still on the fence on whether to ban the course or not. But since then, according to an Atlanta Progressive News article published this month, they have recently gone through with the ban in an overwhelming majority of 38-17. Both Atlanta and Georgia cited similar reasons for their ban, as well as passed the ban with flying colors by an overwhelming majority. The third key area where this is a problem are in domino states, or states that are leaning towards the ban but have yet to go through with it, and they are large and influential in nature. According to a February 2015 Washington Post article, there are 10 currently leaning towards the ban, one of them being Tennessee. The projection states that within a few months, they too will have turned over and banned AP US History in their high schools. As with Georgia, change is imminent and happening fast as the bizarre war against AP US History gains speed. Now that we have looked at the resistance behind it, let's next explore some harms associated. When we sugarcoat American history, we lose the intrinsic value of our education. Those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it, as the infamous quote goes. There are 3 harms associated with this philosophy. The first is that history by and from the perspective of the victor is only half the story. Because of the advanced nature of the course, AP US History looks at both sides analytically. That is the point of the course, according to a College Board statement issued this month. Apparently, less than 12% of high school seniors are proficient in American history, according to the Pew Research Center in 2010. The public curriculum is clearly lacking in information. Second, racism can result without understanding the negative parts of history as well. When we leave out the negative aspects of our history, such as Japanese internment camps, Native American persecution, or the current effects of slavery, we lose half the story. Ignorance quickly leads to bigotry, and considering that we live in a melting pot, this ignorance can quickly turn into racism. The third harm explored is that we lose the intrinsic value of our education. Through analytical courses such as AP US History, we see the positive and the negative side of things, thus understanding things at a deeper level. Indoctrination in the name of saving face gives half the story and stunts progress by lulling us into a false sense of knowing. According to a January 2015 CNN article, 85% of faculty at an Oklahoma high school recognize this, and that's why they are against their home state's ban on AP US History. One teacher in particular speaks out, saying that when we mix politics into education, we are opening the doors for even more bans and indoctrination in schools. Now that we have looked at the harms of this problem, let's next look at some potential solutions. Because this issue is still in its infancy, it has only recently disrupted the status quo. Therefore, we should combat the problem, ironically, by using its victim, education. In order to solve this, states must push back against the ban and deny any legislation that would alter the current curriculum and compromise our education. AP US History idealizes civil discourse and respectfully questioning authority. Education is not grounded in politics, and this ban would be a step in the wrong direction. Now that we have looked at the solutions, let's finally clear up some common misconceptions regarding the ban. The biggest argument by far and large is that AP US History paints America as bigoted and is anti-American as a result. There are two claims that rationalize this idea. The first is that negative events and the emphasis on them leads to a lack of patriotism. However, according to students in an Oklahoma high school, as said by a January 2015 New York magazine, the exact opposite is true. When we learn the negative and the positive sides of history, we can gain a deeper appreciation for our nation. Negative events complete the entire picture and deliver us the truth. Second, history should promote American exceptionalism, and this is false. Exceptionalism oftentimes leads to entitlement, but education, on the other hand, leads to empowerment. America is number one in believing that we're number one, but we fall far behind in history, math, and in science. APs are just a series of key concepts that teachers then build upon and fill in with their own information. In that sense, they are incredibly flexible. It's also important to remember that they are optional, and if the material is found offensive, such as the case with evolution and AP biology, it is possible to opt out and avoid the course altogether. In conclusion, we should repeal the ban against AP US History because it diminishes the intrinsic value of our education. Today, we discussed why the ban would impede our education by first looking at the resistance behind it, and then examining some harms that are associated with it. Then we saw what can result as a result of this by examining some solutions, before finally clearing up some common misconceptions behind it. The Native American statistic that I cited at the beginning of this speech is just one of many events in our history that our school systems gloss over, which begs the question, what else don't we know? It is important that we don't allow indoctrination to affect how we think.